flooding in different colours onto a very saturated piece of paper, you get to play with the way the different pigments might mix. There's quite an unpredictable edge, and actually some edges between the pigments form, like here, which can kind of lead the way you might be painting. So that's what I quite like about it, using watercolour in this way, is that you've got a very active relationship with the paint. It kind of dictates for you the way the painting might go, especially when you're working abstractly. You can use different saturations of watercolour and lay them over each other, especially when this is dried. This is very much a chance process when you're not working figuratively. If you're working with abstract forms, for me it's quite cathartic, and you can kind of let the process lead the way really, and let chance come into the final painting a lot. But then you might pick up on something and think, oh, I'll flood in a bit of a darker shade here. This Prussian blue is really lovely, and the way it mixes with, say, a sienna or a umber on the page. Actually, that's a crimson there coming in. With this paper, you can see that there's quite a nice sort of bite to it. This Bockingford paper is quite tough. It can take heavy, saturated washes, which might sit on the surface for quite a while, and because of that, you've got a lot of time to play, and you think, oh, I might tease this down here, and the paper allows you to do that. I often work quite figuratively when I paint, especially when I've been painting in oils. I'm working figuratively. So initially, perhaps doing an abstract watercolour is very different from my usual practice, but for me, there's a very strong root in process and the action of painting, and how actually there can be links drawn between the very visceral quality of the paint and the subject. So doing exercises like this and just letting my hand move very smoothly across this lovely paper kind of is always reaffirming how much paint is a beautiful substance in itself that is worth celebrating, and just seeing how it reacts so beautifully with the surface. I think the more you use watercolour on paper, you start to learn the way it might react. It actually teaches you a lot about your brushes and your brushwork, and how you can load your brush up with a really thickly saturated level of watercolour, and you know exactly how it's going to glide across this surface. So you start to learn how you can create tensions, how the drying speeds of different applications. But there always is that element of spontaneity as well, and you might catch a little instant like here or here, and you think, I'm going to make the most of this now, and just kind of wing it and live in the moment with the paint. And there's something totally escapist about that, which I love. I think that watercolour allows you to have a nice dynamic between sharp and blurry. So you might choose to use quite a thick application of paint in a sharp line that would dry quite quickly. And it can be lovely how that interacts with maybe a much looser wash, and how they build up together. I think ultimately watercolour is of equal status to any other kind of painting, and it's totally down to the individual and how they choose to use it and see its qualities and realise how they can use those qualities to their advantage. So I wouldn't say that it should be pigeonholed anymore as a pastime or a sedate hobby. I think its place is wherever people choose to put it, and realise its unique qualities which you wouldn't be able to achieve in any other way. As somebody who's been painting figuratively in oils recently, using watercolour in this way I'm finding it particularly liberating and freeing, just because it really is, it's boiled back down to the basics of paint, medium and substrate, and it's making me really study paint as a subject in itself, not just the object of something figurative. And the way that these pigments are interacting has just made me realise again why I love painting, and that's because the act itself is just so enthralling.